Do you like birds? Well, today we're going to go over the man that was known as the Birdman of Alcatraz, Robert Stroud.
We here at Angry Me Production want to thank our sponsor, Mobile Notary Mindy. She's certified with the National Notary Association. She's also bonded and E&O insured. She offers a wide range of services including wills, powers of attorney, medical documents, healthcare proxies, living wills, certification of trust, assignment of personal property, HIPAA waivers, advanced healthcare directives, and 99 verification. You can find her on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Mobile Notary Mindy. You can also visit her webpage at TexasMobileNotaryMindy.com. That's TX, MobileNotaryMindy.com. Thank you so much and enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Meat Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on, we thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Yes, today we're going to go over Robert Stroud, also known as the Birdman of Alcatraz. He was the one that was asked about by one of our fans. And so let us begin. Strauss was born in Seattle, the eldest of Elizabeth Jane and Benjamin Franklin Stroud. The mother had $2 from her previous marriage. His father was an abusive alcoholic. And if we all know, being an abusive alcoholic, father and mother, it doesn't pertain from either or. Sometimes both, sometimes just one. Usually ends up in criminal through these things. And Strauss, at that age of 13, ran away from home. At 18, in Cordova, Alaska, Stroud met 36-year-old Kitty O'Brien, a prostitute and dance hall entertainer for whom he pimped in Juneau. I think it's Juneau. Hold on. I think it's Juneau. Yeah, so early we can't even pronounce names.
Juneau.
Yep, Juneau. Okay. On January 18th, 1909, barman F.K. Charlie Van Dilmer allegedly failed to pay O'Brien for her services and beat her. Stroud confronted Van Damer. Gosh. And after struggling short and shot him to death, Stroud surrendered himself. According to police records, he knocked Von Damer unconscious and then shot him. As Alaska was then a United States territory, Strauss was prosecuted in federal courts where he was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced 12 years in federal penitentiary at McNeil Island, Washington. Strauss was one of the most violent prisoners at McNeil Island, frequently feuding with staff and other inmates, and was prone to illness. He reportedly stabbed a fellow prisoner who reported him for stealing food, assaulted a hospital orderly who had reported him to prison administration for attempting to obtain morphine through threats, and reported stabbing an inmate. In 1912, Stroud was sentenced to an additional 6 months for the attack and transfer of McNeil Island to a federal penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. In 1916, he stabbed a guard through the heart after the guard reprimanded him for minor rule violations that would have prevented a visit from Stroud's younger brother. In 1918, after 3 trials, Strauss was sentenced to be hanged. Strauss's mother appealed to President Woodrow Wilson, who commuted his sentence to life imprisonment. Leavenworth's warden T.W. Morgan strongly opposed this decision, giving Strauss reputation for violence. Morgan persisted the president to staple that sentence Strauss was originally sentenced to was his death to solitary confinement. Those conditions should prevail until the halted execution could be carried out. President Wilson's Attorney General Alexander Mitch Palmer saw it that Stroud would spend the rest of his life in solitary confinement. At Leavenworth in 1920, Strauss found a nest with 3 injured sparrows in the prison yard. Raised them to adulthood, prisoners were sometimes allowed to buy canaries, and Strauss had started an additional collection. He occupied his time raising and caring for these birds, which he could sell for supplies and to help support his mother. According to Strauss, he used a razor blade and nail for tools and made his first bird cage out of wooden crates. Soon thereafter, Leavenworth's administration changed, and William Beatty, Stephanie Hawking. I'm already messing these up. Give us a hand. Biddle took over as warden. Impressed by his possible of presenting Leavenworth as a progressive rehabilitation penitentiary, Bridle furnished Strauss with cages, chemicals, and stationery to conduct his ornithology activities. But it's sad I can pronounce that, but not any other words like bridle. Anyways, visitors were shown Stroud's aviary, and many purchased his canaries. Over the years, he raised about 300 canaries in his cell. He was also wrote 2 books, the 60,000 word thesis, Diseases of Canaries in 1933, which was smuggled out of Leavenworth. In later editions, Strauss digest on the diseases of birds with updates and specific information. He made several important contributions to the aviation pathology, most notably a cure for, Stephanie Hawking, you're going to have to take this one. And there we go.
Hemorrhagic septicemia.
Family of diseases. He gained respect and also some level of sympathy in the bird-loving field. Strauss' activities created problems for prison management. According to regulations, each letter sent or received at the prison had to be read, copied, and approved. Strauss was also involved in his business that this alone required a full-time prison secretary. Wow, okay. He wrote so many letters that basically what's happening here is, as I was working as a correctional officer, all the mail that comes to inmates, they have to be open and read. We had at our facility a little mail room and everything, and they would have people just going over the letters. And there's a lot of letters. You literally have like a big bag, like a mail bag, and each pod would get a mail bag, or each pod would get a mail bag, and you'd have to give the letters to the inmates. But if you're just getting and receiving that many letters to where you're having your own bag, that person is getting read. I mean, they have to have their own one for Stroud. So, Additionally, most of the time, his birds were permitted to fly freely within his cells because of the great number of birds he kept. His cell was filthy. Yes, birds shit everywhere. In 1931, an attempt to force Strauss to discontinue his business and get rid of the birds fell after Strauss and one of his male correspondents, a bird researcher from Indiana named Delilah May Jones, made his story known to the newspapers and magazines. A massive letter campaign and a 50,000 signature petition sent to the president of Herbert Hoover resulted in Strauss being permitted to keep his birds. Despite prison overcrowding, he was even given a second cell to house them. However, his letter writing privileges were greatly curtailed. Jones and Strauss grew so close that he moved to Kansas in 1931 and started a business with him, selling aviation medicines. Prison officials, fed up with Strauss's activities and their attendance publicly, intensified their effort to transfer him from Leavenworth. Strauss discovered a Kansas law that forbid the transfer of prisoners married in Kansas. To this end, he married Jones by proxy, which infuriated the prison administrators, who would not allow him to correspond with his wife. God. Now, some of these people have done horrible, horrible things, yes, and they go to prisons. But it's one of those things that, as a guard, just do your job. Don't get fussy with, regulations and everything that are kept for people and everything. It's part of your job. Did I hate some of this stuff? Yes, but I just shrugged it off because it's part of my job. I get paid for something else. I get paid to lead. I get paid to stay there, watch them, make sure they do. Everybody lives, then go home. Am I kind of upset that some people get special privileges because of what they can do? A little bit, because everybody's supposed to be treated equally in these facilities. But some people get special privileges, a little bit of privileges, when sorry, now we had a artist that went around and did a lot of the artwork, and he was a professional painter. Yes, he was really, really good. We also have maintenance people that are inmates, and they have to be watched, and they get the tools and everything, but it's part of their job. Now, he's actually benefiting the society of aviators and helping create like diseases and sicknesses and everything. So it's one of those things. He's in prison, but he's still benefiting mankind. Now, I'm probably going to repeat this. Prison officials were not the only ones perturbed with Strauss's marriage. His mother was also incensed. Hold on. Stephanie Hawking.
Incensed.
Mother was also incensed. They had a close relationship, but Elizabeth Strauss strongly disapproved of the marriage of Jones, believing women were nothing but trouble for her son. Whereas previously she had been a strongly advocate for her son, helping him with legal battles. She has not argued against his application for parole or becoming a major obstacle in his attempt to be released from the prison system. Man. She moved away from Leavenworth and refused any further contact with him, and she died in 1938. In 1933, Strauss advised in a publication that he had not received any royalties from the disease of canaries. In retaliation, the publisher complained to the warden, and as a result, proceedings were initially for him to be transferred to Stroud to Alcatraz, where he was not permitted to keep his birds. In the end, Strauss was able to keep both his birds and canary selling business at Leavenworth. Strauss mostly avoided trouble for several more years until it came to light that some of his equipment Strauss had requested for his lab was in fact being used as a homemade distillery to manufacture alcohol. You know what? Yeah, some of those things probably could have make alcohol. Officials finally had the wedge they needed to drive Stroud out, citing his dangerous tendencies and long-standing concern about his stationary condition of his cell, basically his unclean cell. They initially proceeded to send him to Alcatraz. While at Alcatraz on December 16th, 1942, Strauss became an inmate number 594 at Alcatraz. He reportedly was not informed in advance that he was leaving Leavenworth, and his beloved birds was given just 10 minutes notice of his departure. His birds and equipment were sent to his brother at Alcatraz's strict policies meant that he was unable to continue his aviation work. He spent 6 years in segregation and another 11 confined to the hospital wing at the penitentiary. In 1943, he was assessed by psychologist Remy M. Reaching, who diagnosed him as a psychopath with an IQ of 112. His initial report in 1942, based on Leavenworth, states that he had an IQ of 116. While there, he wrote 2 manuscripts, Bobby, an autobiography, and Looking Outward, a history of U.S. prison systems from colonial times to the formation of the Bureau of Prisons. A judge rules that Strauss had the right to write and keep such manuscripts, but upheld the warden's decisions to ban their publications. After Strauss's death, the transcripts were delivered to his lawyer, Richard England. Rumors of Strauss' homosexuality were noted at Alcatraz, according to Don Hurley, whose father was a guard at Alcatraz. Whenever Strauss was around anyone, which was seldom, he was watched very closely, as prison officials were very aware of his overt homosexuality tendencies. In an interview in Hurley for his book, The Former Inmate, heard Strauss was always a dog block, solitary confinement, or later in the hospital because he was a wolf, aggressive homosexual who had a bad temper. And in February 1963, Strauss met and talked with actor Burt Lancaster, who portrayed him in The Bird of Alcatraz. Strauss never got to see the film or read the book it was based on, but did share one of the problems that prevented parole, that he was an admitted homosexual. Lancaster quoted Strauss as saying, "Let's face it, I'm 73 years old. Does that answer your question about whether I am a dangerous homosexual?" Yeah. During his 17-year term at Alcatraz, Strauss was allowed access to the prison library and began studying law according to his permit to play chess with one of the guards. Strauss began petitioning the governor that his long prison term amounted to cruel and unusual punishment. In 1959, with his health failing, Strauss was transferred to the Medical Center of Federal Prisons in Springfield, Missouri, but he was never released. Upon his death, November 21st, 1963, Robert Strauss died in Springfield Medical Center at the age of 73, having been incarcerated for 54 years of his life, which 42 were spent in solitary confinement. He was inertly in his old Stephanie Hawkins. Help me out with this one.
Masonic Cemetery.
Masonic Cemetery near Minneapolis, Illinois. After a private funeral ceremony at Alkin's Farm Funeral Home in November 25th of 1963. His legacy: Strauss is considered one of the most notorious criminals in American history. Robert Niemi stated that Strauss had a superior intellect and become a first-rate ornithologist and author, but was an extremely dangerous menace and psychopath. disliked and distrusted by his jailers and fellow inmates. However, by his last years, Strauss' behavior had improved and he was viewed more favorably. Judge Baker considered Strauss to be modest, no longer a danger to society, and as having a genuine love for birds. Given his level of notoriety, the crimes he committed were unremarkable, especially as the assaults he committed, he had clear cause. Okay, this one's going to be a Carl
Civic case.
That okay. Consider Strauss to have been a brilliant, self-taught expert on birds and possibly the best-known examples of self-improvement and rehabilitation in the U.S. prison system. Because of Strauss' contribution to the field of ornithology, he gained a large following of thousands of bird breeders and poultry raisers who demanded his release. And for many years, the committee to release Robert F. Strauss campaigned to have Strauss released from prison. However, because Strauss had killed a federal officer, his punishment is in solitary confinement remained intact. In 1963, Richard M. England, a young lawyer who had campaigned John F. Kennedy and campaigned for John F. Kennedy in California, took cause of security Strauss's release. He met with former President Henry S. Truman to enlist support, but Truman declined. He also met with Senator Kennedy administration officials who were studying the subject. English took the last photo of Strauss in which he was shown as a green visor. Shown with a green visor. The warning of the prison administration to have English prosecuted for bringing something into the prison he did not take out. Unexposed film. Authorities declined to take any kind of actions. Upon Strauss' death, his personal property, including the original manuscripts, were delivered to English. As his last legal representative, who later turned over some of the possessions to the Auburn Society. Now, the Auburn Society is an American nonprofit environmental organization dedicated to the conservation of birds and their habitats, located in the United States and incorporated in 1905. Strauss became the subject of a 1955 book by Thomas E. Gallas, The Birdman and Alcatraz, which we already went over. Gallas was strongly advocating rehabilitation in the prison system, portraying Strauss as a favorable light. This was adapted by Guy Troper for his 1962 film of the same name. And it was directed by John Frankenhammer. It started Burt Lancaster as Stroud, Carl Maiden as a fictional renamed Warden, Thelma Ryder as Strauss's mother, and Betty Fields as his wife, renamed Stella Johnson in the film. However, former inmates of Alcatraz said that the real Strauss was far more sinister, dangerous, and unpleasant than the fictionalized version portrayed in the books and film. One said, "He's a vicious killer." I think Burt Lancaster owes us all apology. That's kind of funny. Now, that is about it on Robert Stroud. Now, I'm so glad that the actual prison system was actually elevated enough to where we're basically trying to rehabilitate these people. And they're now, mind you, there are people in the prison system that need to stay there. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't want to hear that. But I was like, my last days working at Allred. I had an altercation with one inmate. He wasn't a model inmate at all. Constantly uh, what the? He was constantly banging on the doors, causing a ruckus, and this is going against the other inmates too. He was just a hassle. This is the reason why he was in solitary confinement. And at the end, I was never allowed in the same vicinity because I put him through court, and he got extra days sentenced on his stuff because he kept on attacking the door when I was near. Didn't do anything. Gave him food. Made sure everything was proper and everything, but he was really out of his mind. But anyways, everyone, thank you all for launching. Thank you all for listening. Love you all, guys. Whoever listen to this and keep up with us. Thank you all. You are literally the glue that's setting us apart with everything else, with just doing this. And I can't thank you any of y'all enough. And I'm constantly gonna thank you guys because I'm surprised we hit like 158. People still like to listen to me and my other co-hosts on Nerd Sports, and the people I get on here for What the Hell. A lot of people actually like listening to these people, and thank you for shining a light on some of these people that on the What the Hell is just shining a light on people that have like great stories of their lives, and some of them went down dark holes, and some of them they went down these dark holes and became a better person afterwards. And those stories just amaze me, and it helps a lot knowing that there's people out there that are striving for themselves to be better, even though what's really sad is the ones that get our channel notoriety is the ones that are worst of the worst. And but yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Love you guys. Bye.